The film begins by showing Wataru Gojo, a notorious mobster who has just been released from bribery charges. As he steps out of the courthouse, he is greeted by an attorney general who is one of his subordinates. But their celebration is short-lived as another prosecutor named Hirayama approaches them, warning Gojo that the bribery case is far from over. Despite the warning, Gojo remains unfazed and even boasts that he is immune to the law. As Gojo's release becomes headline news, a swarm of media crews gathers outside the prosecutor's office to capture his every move. Amid the chaos, a fearless journalist named Mika boldly questions Gojo about his close ties with corrupt officials. Gojo's men try to prevent her from asking further, but Gojo ultimately decides to answer the question. He reveals that he has resigned from his company and plans to run for mayor of Kaiko City, shocking everyone present. Meanwhile, Hirayama is deeply troubled by Gojo's decision. He believes that if Gojo becomes the mayor, it will only lead to the destruction of Kaiko City. The scene shifts to a steamy sauna, where a deadly assassin known as Ninja is on a mission to eliminate 2 Yakuza members from the Sakurada clan. Ninja is a man of few words and follows his boss's orders to the letter. He swiftly dispatches the guards, and his boss, Kim Sungi, finishes off the Yakuza in the bathroom. Sungi then confronts the Yakuza boss who is soaking in hot water, and the tension in the room is palpable. From the look in his eyes, it's clear that Sungi is about to kill the Yakuza boss. Later that night, the police arrive to investigate the gruesome massacre. They find the bodies of the Yakuza members and the Yakuza boss of the Sakurada clan, whose body has already started to cool down. Megumi Nohara, a junior policeman, arrives late to the crime scene and is scolded by her superiors. A lead investigator breaks into the room and reveals that the killer cut off the hand of the Yakuza Sakurada boss to steal something from his safe. When Megumi sees the victim's mutilated corpse, she can't hold back her nausea and runs away. Kuma, her senior, reminds her not to show any weakness, but before he can finish his sentence, an emergency alarm goes off. It's reported that the family of the Yakuza Sakurada boss has been slaughtered in their home, and the same killer is suspected to be behind it. Elsewhere, Sungi meets with Gojo at a place where he is a member of a Korean gang that cooperates with Gojo. However, Gojo seems disappointed by Sungi's decision to finish off the Yakuza boss and his family. This is because the massacre case can hamper Gojo's business in the Kaiko City area. The next day, Hirayama is troubled by the rampant criminal activity committed by Gojo and his associates. He calls upon Koizumi, a former subordinate, to help him form a special division to solve the case. Hirayama selects Kuma, Ryota Nishizaki, and Megumi as members of the division. Knowing that the team needs a strong leader, Hirayama ultimately appoints Makoto Terada, a former prosecutor and police officer, to lead the division. However, Koizumi is unhappy with the decision, as Terada was once her superior and treated her harshly. Despite this, Hirayama chose Terada because of his reputation as a feared monster among the Mafia and Yakuza. With the formation of the Special Division, Hirayama's plan to bring Gojo and his criminal associates to justice is finally set into motion. The prosecutor quickly contacts the police and assembles Kuma, Ryota, and Megumi for the Special Division. He also calls upon Terada, who is currently imprisoned for a murder he did not commit. Terada had been framed by Gojo, who feared him and wanted him out of the way to conduct his shady business more easily. The prosecutor offers to temporarily release Terada to join the Special Division, but Terada is skeptical of the motives behind this offer. Meanwhile, Hirayama and Koizumi are waiting for Terada in a meeting room. Koizumi is still unhappy with Hirayama's decision to appoint Terada as the leader of the Special Division, given their difficult past working relationship. Hirayama tries to reassure Koizumi, taking full responsibility for any consequences that may arise due to Terada's involvement. Shortly after, Terada entered the room and was met by Hirayama, who wasted no time in making an offer. He promised to release Terada if he agreed to help him, and even offered to help prove his innocence in the case that landed him in prison. Terada was hesitant, however, as he suspected that it might be a trap. The following day, Kuma and his associates stumbled upon an abandoned gambling shophouse, where they were surprised to find Terada waiting for them. Terada explained that he had been temporarily released and summoned them for a special mission. He revealed that they were going to take down a powerful criminal organization and that he needed their help. Not long after, Koizumi arrives and informs the team about their mission to gather evidence of Gojo's and the Korean gang's criminal activities and to arrest them to prevent Kaiko City from being controlled by foreign businessmen and the Mafia. According to rumors, Gojo is planning to build a casino business in the city, which is currently prohibited by law. To carry out his plan, Gojo is running for mayor of Kaiko with the intention of abolishing the law. The mission is highly dangerous, so a special division has been created to carry out the mission covertly, and anyone who leaks information will be punished. After the meeting, Kuma and Ryota return to the police station only to discover that Yamazaki, a member of the Sakurada's Yakuza gang, has been accused of murder by the police. However, Yamazaki is just a scapegoat used to cover up the real killer, Sungi. In the meantime, Megumi was sitting in a cozy cafe, catching up with her friend Mika. Mika asked about the progress of Megumi's investigation, but Megumi just smiled and remained tight-lipped, knowing that police secrets should not be discussed in public places. Back at the Special Division headquarters, while other members were taking a break, Koizumi and Terada remained on duty. Koizumi, being the supervisor of the division, reminded Terada to follow her orders, especially since he had not officially returned to the police force. She also prohibited Terada from carrying firearms during duty. Meanwhile, at the home of the Korean mafia's leader, Madam, Sungi approached her to report that Terada had been released from prison. Madam was furious that the man accused of killing her son, Taek-hyun, was now a free man. She ordered Sungi to take care of Terada permanently. Sungi hesitated, knowing that this task would not be an easy one. On the other hand, Terada and his team began their mission to gather information from the remaining members of Sakurada. Kuma and Ryota accompanied Terada inside the Yakuza member's house, while Megumi was ordered to wait in the car. As they entered, they noticed that the atmosphere was tense, with members of Sakurada led by Murata causing a commotion. Murata was furious with Terada, feeling that he had meddled in their affairs. He ordered all his men to fight Terada and his team. However, Murata's men were no match for Terada's martial skills, and they were quickly defeated. Just as Murata was about to make his escape, he stumbled upon Megumi, who was waiting in the car outside. In a surprising turn of events, Megumi hit Murata with a baseball bat, knocking Terada unconscious in the process. Kuma and Ryota, who witnessed Megumi's action, were amazed by her sudden display of prowess. After being subdued and taken to the Special Division headquarters, Murata finally comes to his senses. Kuma, eager to extract information about Yamazaki's whereabouts, starts questioning Murata. However, instead of answering, Murata reveals that Yamazaki had been falsely accused of killing the Sakurada boss as part of Sungi's cover-up plan. Murata goes on to explain that Taek-hyun held the key to the criminal case against Gojo and Sungi, as he had strong evidence to put them behind bars. Unfortunately, Taek-hyun had already been killed, and the evidence was now lost. Terada, who had been investigating Gojo and Sungi's crimes, had been made the scapegoat for Taek-hyun's death in the past. The news of Taek-hyun's death and the loss of crucial evidence leaves Terada, Kuma, and Ryota stunned. After interrogating Murata, Kuma and his team are tasked with capturing Yamazaki at his home, hoping to gather more information on Sungi's criminal activities. However, upon their arrival, they find no sign of Yamazaki and become suspicious that Sungi may have already kidnapped him or that Yamazaki has been working with Sungi all along to cover up his crimes. Terada sends his team to investigate this possibility further. When Murata hears Terada's accusation that Yamazaki is involved with Sungi, he becomes enraged and attempts to attack Terada. The situation is quickly diffused, and Koizumi asks Murata why Taek-hyun sided with Sakurada, even though Taek-hyun and Sungi were members of the Korean gang. Murata explains that Taek-hyun had feelings for the daughter of the Sakurada boss, which caused him to align with their gang. As Megumi, Kuma, and the others return to the base, they realize that Yamazaki's escape has led them to a dead end. The team's frustration grows as they search the area where the car was found, but find no sign of Yamazaki. Their hopes are soon shattered when Yamazaki's dead body is discovered elsewhere, along with a gruesome discovery of the Sakurada boss's hand. The news of Yamazaki's death and the discovery of the boss's body parts sends shockwaves through the team, especially Terada. He plans to contact his team for a meeting to discuss their next course of action. However, before he can do so, he is ambushed by a hitman who attempts to kill him. Terada, who is an experienced fighter, manages to subdue the attacker, paralyzing him in the process. At the same time, Kuma takes on Ninja and his troops. The fight becomes intense with Kuma and his friends heavily outnumbered. As the battle wears on, Ryota and Kuma are overpowered and paralyzed, leaving Megumi as the only one still fighting. Despite being outmatched, Megumi refuses to give up and grabs a nearby pistol, aiming to shoot Ninja. However, her shot misses, and Ninja tries to flee. Megumi gives chase but falls into a trap set by Ninja, cornering her. Just as Ninja attempts to stab her, Kuma arrives and saves her, but not before Ninja can deliver a fatal blow, stabbing Kuma multiple times. Megumi loses consciousness, and Ryota tries to shoot Ninja, but he manages to dodge the bullet once again. In the meantime, Koizumi was devastated by the news of Kuma's death and immediately informed Hirayama of the tragic incident. In a state of shock, Hirayama decided to visit the Special Division headquarters to assess the situation. However, on his way there, he was hit by a car driven by Sungi, who had received orders from Gojo to eliminate Hirayama as well. The sudden and unexpected death of Hirayama left Koizumi and the rest of the Special Division in a state of mourning. Meanwhile, Terada realized that he needed to take drastic action to bring down Sungi and put an end to his criminal activities. He knew that Madam, the leader of a Korean gang, had a score to settle with him, as he was responsible for the death of her son. So, he made a deal with Madam, offering to surrender himself in exchange for Sungi. Madam was intrigued by the offer and agreed to it, promising to spare Terada's life if he could deliver Sungi to her. The day after the events at the Special Division headquarters, Madam is seen arguing with Sungi as she believes that he is getting too close to Gojo, something she is not comfortable with. Feeling unappreciated, Sungi suddenly brings up Taehyun's death, which raises suspicion from Madam. She accuses Sungi of being involved in her son's death, leading to a physical fight between the two. Sungi then pulls out his weapon to kill Madam, but her bodyguard quickly intervenes and shoots Sungi to save her. After escaping, Madam and her bodyguard are pursued by traitors, members of the Korean gang who had sided with Sungi. However, they are rescued by the Sakurada members who had witnessed the incident. While in the car, Madam reflects on the events of the previous night, when Terada had given her a letter of deposit for Taehyun. This gesture leads her to believe in Terada's sincerity and trustworthiness. In the meantime, Koizumi is on a mission to save the Special Division from being disbanded after the recent death of Hirayama. She meets with Ryota and Megumi, two members of the division who narrowly escaped the attack that claimed Hirayama's life. Koizumi shares with them the grim news that Terada is to be arrested again, as his sentence was not fully served. The only way for him to avoid arrest is to become a fugitive, which could potentially lead to further complications for the division. As they discuss the matter, news of Tamura's death breaks. Tamura, a director at Gojo's company, was found dead in his car, an apparent suicide. However, the division suspects foul play, and they're right. Tamura was actually killed by Gojo's men. To make matters worse, Gojo calls a press conference and publicly accuses Tamura of being the mastermind behind the illegal casino project and Hirayama's killer. By doing so, he effectively closes the investigation into Hirayama's murder, as the police cannot investigate a deceased person. This move makes Sungi suspicious and he begins to suspect that Gojo may turn on him in the future. Elsewhere, Madam, still grieving the loss of her son Taehyun, finally meets his ex-girlfriend Sakiko, who is the only surviving daughter of the powerful Sakurada boss. Sakiko reveals to Madam that Taehyun has a son with her, which deeply moves Madam. She embraces Sakiko, feeling a connection with her as the grandmother of her first grandchild. Sakiko then hands Madam a flash drive containing all the evidence of the crimes committed by Sungi and Gojo. After their meeting, Madam contacts Terada and offers to help him catch Sungi. She also invites him to join her organization, but he declines, as his only goal is to capture Sungi and Gojo. Meanwhile, Madam calls Sungi to intimidate him by revealing that she possesses evidence of his crimes, making him realize that she has the power to determine his fate. At the diner, Terada looked concerned as he appealed to Ryota and Megumi not to participate in the dangerous mission ahead. The special division had been disbanded, and the mission was extremely risky, but Ryota and Megumi persisted, driven by their desire for revenge for Kuma's death. Terada was hesitant to let them join, but with Murata and Sakurada's gang also on board, he eventually relented and allowed them all to participate. Meanwhile, Madam's bodyguard made a crucial decision to give Taehyun's flash drive to Mika. This move signaled Madam's full support for Terada, as Mika was free to leak the contents of the flash drive to the media, potentially exposing Sungi and Gojo's crimes to the public. The scene shifts to a location where Terada and his group arrive at a location where they are met by a large group of armed men loyal to Sungi. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Terada and his team are not afraid to engage in a fierce battle. Even with the odds stacked against them, they are able to hold their own against Sungi's men. Megumi uses her abilities to paralyze some of Sungi's men, giving Terada and his team an advantage. Sungi watches the battle unfold from a vantage point on the upper floor. Terada sees him trying to escape and gives chase, but is quickly tackled by some of Sungi's men. Terada swiftly dispatches them but is then confronted by a new group of Sungi's men who emerge from the upper floor. Knowing that he cannot take on the entire group alone, Terada instructs Ryota and Megumi to join him in the building. As they make their way upstairs, Terada and his team are forced to fight their way through more of Sungi's men. Eventually, they are joined by Murata and his men, which helps to turn the tide of the battle in their favor. Inside the building, Terada finds himself outnumbered by Sungi's men and is quickly overwhelmed. Seeing this, Ryota and Megumi jump in to help, taking on the gangsters and urging Terada to make his way upstairs. With their combined strength, they manage to hold off the attackers long enough for Terada to reach the next floor. But as Terada reaches the top, he is suddenly confronted by a skilled ninja who launches a vicious attack. Start to falter, the door suddenly opens, revealing Murata and his men who have come to join the fight. With Murata and his men by their side, Ryota, Megumi, and Terada are able to push forward and take on Sungi's men with renewed vigor. Together, they fight their way to the top floor. In the meantime, Terada continues his intense fight with Ninja, Ryota, and the two engage in a brutal battle, with Terada struggling to keep up against his formidable opponent. Meanwhile, Ryota and Megumi are running out of steam as they continue to hold off the entrance against a growing number of Sungi's men. Just as Megumi arrive on the scene and inform him that the ninja is the one who killed Kuma. Upon hearing this, Terada hands the ninja over to his two subordinates to seek revenge while he goes to confront Sungi. Ryota and Megumi take on the ninja but are quickly overpowered by his superior strength and skill. Ryota, struggling to fight off the ninja, notices a gun lying near his leg and kicks it toward Megumi, who is barely conscious. He urges her to use it to shoot the ninja while he holds him down. Megumi regains consciousness just in time to see the ninja struggling to overpower Ryota. She quickly picks up the gun and, with a steady hand, fires several shots at the ninja, killing him instantly. At the same time, Terada met Tsungi and Tsungi then invites Terada to join him in finishing off Gojo, but Terada refuses to work with the man who killed Taekyon. Tsungi defends his actions, claiming Taekyon betrayed him, but Terada remains adamant. The two engage in a brutal fight, which ends with Terada emerging as the victor after shooting Tsungi with a gun. When Terada stands up, he is suddenly held at gunpoint by Koizumi, who reveals herself as working for Gojo and also the one who framed Terada for Taekyon's murder. However, Ryota and Megumi arrive just in time, aiming their guns at Koizumi. She claims she intends to arrest Terada for Tsungi's murder, but Terada reveals that he spared Tsungi's life by shooting his bulletproof vest. Ryota and Megumi do not believe Koizumi's claims, as Kuma had warned Ryota to be wary of her before his death. After the intense events that unfolded, the police finally arrive on the scene and arrest Tsungi, while Koizumi surrenders to the authorities. Terada, who is still a fugitive, also turns himself in. Despite not being able to capture Gojo, Terada finds solace in Mika's actions. She has exposed all evidence of Gojo's crimes to social media, making it impossible for the mafia to escape. Furthermore, everyone who was involved in the Gojo case is now being investigated, ensuring that justice is served. In the climactic scene of the film, Gojo has been apprehended and is escorted into a police car when someone suddenly stabs him in the back, killing him. Ryota begins investigating Gojo's murder and is surprised to discover that Ninja is still alive and is responsible for the stabbing. Ryota and Megumi then pursue Ninja until they find him lying helpless, having been attacked by someone else. Meanwhile, the bodyguard who killed Ninja returns to the car and meets with Madam. The moral of the story is to never underestimate the power of a well-placed karate chop, even in the most complicated of situations.